Which will be pretty short. We are going to talk about statements, and we're going to talk about the effects that statements have and what control flow is. So let's take a look at Visual Studio. This is the same program that we were looking at in the previous video. And I've mentioned a couple of times this word statement, and I want to say exactly what that is. All of these things here that we see in the body of the main method, these are statements. And we can see that there are three kinds of statements. Right? There's this statement here, right? the console.writeLine statements. And these statements, they invoke a method. They invoke the writeLine method of the console class. And then they pass some value to that method, and that method does something. Right? And then we see that there are declaration statements, like this thing that declares a local variable, number of bananas, number of apples. Declaration statements, the effect that they produce is they cause a new variable to come into existence, and they cause that variable to be assigned a value. And then we have these assignment statements here. Right? So an assignment statement says we have a variable on the left-hand side, we have a value on the right-hand side, and we're going to assign that value into this variable. And so far, these are the only three kinds of statements that we've seen. Right? But each of these statements has an effect, and that's the purpose of a statement. Right? The effect of a particular statement is to change the state of the program, right? by introducing a new variable or changing its value, or by having some effect on the outside world, right? By, for example, printing something out to the console. Right? So for our purposes, a statement is a portion of code that produces an effect. Now, back in the previous video, I said that an expression is a portion of the code that produces a value, and I said that that was a simplification. This is also somewhat a simplification of what a statement is. We'll look at examples as we go along of more complicated statements. So what about control flow? Well, statements are sort of the unit of control flow. Right? And by control flow, I mean that when we are in Visual Studio and I step into this program, right, you see this little arrow here tells us what statement is going to execute next, and it flows from one statement to the next. Right? So the way that this control flows through the program is determined by the kinds of statements that you put in your program. Now, right now, we've only seen programs where the control flow is very straightforward. We start at the top of the program, and we go statement, 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 and then we're done. Control flows can get much, much more complicated than that, as we're going to see in the next few videos. Summing up, once again, expressions are for computing values. Statements are about producing effects. Variable declarations, variable assignments, calls to console.writeLine, those are all examples of statements.